Welcome to the Mindful Drinking Movement podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Betancourt, former wino and ex party girl, and current hypnotherapist and transformational life coach, helping you to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol. So, today's episode, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit and share with you how hypnotherapy can help you heal addictive patterns with drinking. So, what happens when you try to change your drinking, but you find it frustrating or awful, or you just don't want to do it because it seems like it's easier just to keep drinking than to have to go through the process of not drinking or realizing you have to quit or all of that stuff, right? There's so much that comes up when we think about shifting gears on drinking when it's been a certain way for a long time. It can feel scary to create that kind of change. So, how do you do it without feeling tortured? Well, that is my specialty. That's what I'm going to share with you today, how I have successfully done it for myself and many other people with hypnotherapy. And here's why hypnotherapy is just amazing for this type of issue when you want to change something that seems like impossible to change. Or, I mean, there's a lot of conflicting beliefs that go around it, but one that I hear a lot and over is that you really love drinking. You really love to have some wine. You really love that experience still. And you don't want to look at it necessarily or have to quote fix it or change it because you don't want it to be taken away. And that is totally valid. It's so completely valid and I really understand that. And I get it. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be so black and white. There's definitely room for everyone to create their own personal relationship with how they choose to drink based on your own values. The conflict is, though, when you feel like you're out of alignment with your values with your drinking. Um, that is really when change needs to happen, ought to happen. That's like perfect prime timing for change to happen. So here's how hypnotherapy can help you create that change in a gradual and not everything, growth is inherently uncomfortable, so I'm not going to use the word comfortable, but doable, achievable, um, survivable, easier way to change your drinking rather than telling yourself what to do and then not being able to do it and then feeling bad about it. This is easier to do than monitoring and measuring and trying to otherwise shift something that is so deeply interwoven in the psyche. And that is with hypnotherapy for me. There's many ways to achieve an ends. This is how I have done it. Hypnotherapy allows you to be in a state where you can see beyond your current thinking. And your current thinking, as it relates to alcohol and the patterns that you have around it, is the same. Because if you have a pattern of habit, you have a pattern of thought. Thought is what drives our behavior, and when thought is on repeat over and over and again, they become beliefs, and beliefs are what keep a habit in place. A habit is repeated action, pattern of action, and beliefs are patterns or habits of thought. So, to change your drinking, you have to change your thinking. To change a habit, you have to change the belief that is attached to it. And when we are just going about our day to day life and we don't intentionally create change, nothing will change. It will be the same. You might think about doing some change. You might think about how it would be different if it were another way, but that's hard to do from an application standpoint. Just saying, okay, now it's going to be different and I have these good intentions, and then when habit time comes around, like say in the evening time when you normally open a bottle of wine to cook dinner, that feels very conflicting because the thinking hasn't changed, just an intention for it to be different has changed. So here's what hypnotherapy can and will do for you. It allows you to be in a place where you can selectively see your thoughts, as separate from you, as something that you created, as something that is not you, but that you've generated and entertained, that you picked up from somewhere, you've put it on repeat, and it's become really woven into the fabric of your identity, which is why it is hard to see. It's hard to see unless you make efforts to do it, like having hypnotherapy, like deep journaling, like deep meditation, plant journeying, all sorts of ways. When you're in a relaxed state and you can see your thought, and in the type of hypnotherapy that I practice, it's called regression hypnotherapy. I help you journey back through time to see where the origin of this thought, this belief came from. And originally, it probably had nothing to do with drinking at all. Originally, it probably had something to do with how you believe that you manage stress, or how you believe that you best socialize or relax or fit in or find rewards for your efforts. It probably has something to do with that before you were even introduced to drinking. So the seed had already been planted, right? A way that you identify yourself as being. For example, when I had this process done for myself, I discovered that I had a belief when I was really young, like my early teenage years, I developed a belief that I couldn't handle stress, that I was incapable of managing stress. And so when I was introduced to alcohol at around the same time, it like clicked into place, and my belief became that alcohol helped me manage stress, because when I drank it, I ceased to think about the problems that I had at that time. I ceased to use my analytical mind, my conscious mind, to ruminate on the issues, because alcohol shuts your brain down, right, in different levels, but it shuts down the neocortex first, and that is where we have our active thinking happens there. So that's drinking fits perfectly for people who are ruminating over their problems and their issues and they don't want to think about it. Alcohol really is a good, so I'm not, alcohol makes sense. It makes sense to drink, to not have to think about, not have to think, literally not have to think about a problem. However, the problem is, of course, that alcohol over long-term use is really damaging, as a lot of us are discovering for ourselves, and we want other solutions to the problem. So this is what happens. You go back in time and you identify the belief, that the limiting belief that you have about yourself, and how alcohol became associated with this limiting belief and how they're intertwined. And then through the process that a hypnotherapist or myself or someone who's trained in this will help you do, is to separate those things, so that alcohol is not the solution for the issue that you had when you were younger, and you're able to see that you're actually so much better resourced to manage this issue that you tell yourself that you drink for, and you are able to come up with better solutions for your problem. You're able to identify those solutions as things that you'd rather be doing, and those become imprinted in you, in your subconscious and in your psyche, through a process of repetition in the hypnotherapy session. And then when you are brought out of the hypnotherapy, or when you come back into your conscientious mind, you will notice that you feel differently about it. And it's very nuanced, and there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of differences for people. It's very personal, and that's why this works so well. And there are lots of like hypnotherapy recordings out there, and I'm sure they're great, but they don't address you personally in the way that you think and that you believe, and what is going on for you, and the self-concept that you've been carrying around for years, if not decades, and how that self-concept overlapped with alcohol, became a quote, quote, problem-solving habit that you have. And that is that's like the nuts and bolts of it. There's a lot more details that I can go into, but I'm just going to leave you with that for today to think about. So if you are interested in doing hypnotherapy sessions with me, I am currently accepting clients. You can find me on Instagram and send me a DM over there. And if you don't want to do a session with me, that's okay too. But you can also take this podcast as an invitation to reflect on what you say about alcohol, and to really take that with a grain of salt, as that is not a fact. It's not it's not true in the larger sense of truth. It's true for you. That's why you keep saying it, and that's why you keep doing it. But in order to change something, we have to be willing to revise and rewrite what we believe to be true about ourselves and what we believe to be true about alcohol. We have to be willing to be flexible in shifting our thinking around it. And when you become flexible and willing to shift your thinking, it kind of initially feels like, oh, I was wrong. Oh my God, I've been like lied to. I told myself this kind of bullshit for so long. And that's a very temporary stage, which then leads into this world of liberation, where you realize that the things that you've been telling yourself about yourself are not true, but they served for a purpose at a moment in time when it was needed and it did seem true. But a lot of us have outgrown that. We've outgrown those beliefs, but they're still lingering there and they're still acting on us. And that's why we can end up in these places of feeling like we're totally frustrated because we want more growth and expansion, and yet we're doing the same thing over and over. And why is this happening? Well, this is why it's happening. So we need to be able to be flexible with our thinking, be flexible with what you believe to be true about alcohol and yourself. And I promise you, it will open up a very freeing and expansive place within you that allows for you to then make change. Okay, that's what I got for you today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back next week. And again, if you're interested in doing hypnotherapy sessions with me personally, please come find me on Instagram or look at the links in the show notes. I hope you have a beautiful day, and take care of yourself. You deserve it, and you're amazing.